Hi and welcome back to LDF-Designs. In today's video I'm doing a little bit of an educated experiment. I've been taking a couple of online classes with another artist. She has some video series out and you can purchase those and work through them at your own pace. Her name is Crystal Marie and she is with Canary Rising, or that's the name of her website. And so she is using some repurposed packing material and applying a mixture to those pieces. And then once she gets those prepared, she's using them in all kinds of mixed media. And I'm going to be using mine with Encaustic. So I have some of these packing pieces that I've already put at least one layer of it's like a stucco type mixture. It has a little bit of, I think 3 different ingredients or so, some wall joint compound and some pre-made concrete mix, to name a couple of those ingredients. But once you apply that on there and let that dry, then you can start doing other things to the pieces. So in this case, I'm using some gouache paints, which is a watercolor based paint. And I had made some squares using the stucco type mixture and just filling those in, giving them some color. And then after I shot this video, I did go back and put a little more of the mixture onto this piece to thicken it up a little bit, make the piece a little bit more sturdy. And then when I pick the video up here shortly, you'll see that it has a little bit more on there. I had 4 of these packing materials pieces that were somewhat similar, and so I had done each one slightly differently. The one that I'm painting on, obviously I'm painting. The one next to it, I actually fixed some different fabrics onto it, so those squares actually have fabric in them, and I put the fabric onto the wet stucco mixture, and that's what's holding that on there. So I was doing all of those 4 pieces initially, kind of doing each of the stages to all of those pieces at the same time. But I did want to see what I was doing to prepare this before I started applying the encaustic. So at this point, like I said, I had added a little bit more of the mixture to that piece with the 3 squares on it. I've also prepared up this wood piece. I did some collage on it again using the stucco mixture, added some collage papers and some walnut ink, and prepared that because my plan is to fix this piece that I'm holding onto the wooden board. So at this time I'm just using some pencil, charcoal pencil and graphite pencil, adding some marks on there, and then I'm going to warm it up and start applying the encaustic. As you can see, the edges of this have a little bit of ribbing to it, and I actually like that texture, so I am going to fill some encaustic in there but try to leave those open spaces to the best of my ability. Because the encaustic is pooling up in a lot of those bigger spaces, it takes it a little bit longer to cool to where when I turn the piece then it doesn't run out. So I had a little bit of a longer wait time waiting for the encaustic to set up a little bit as I was putting the encaustic on the edges. So I didn't show all of that, but I did go ahead and put about 2 layers onto the whole edge all the way around of the piece. At this point, I do want to build up that lip that I made around those squares. So started off just putting a little bit of encaustic on those higher spaces, then covering it, and then as you'll watch here, I will go ahead and continue to build those up. So at this time, I took the brush and I'm letting the wax cool slightly on there, running some of the hotter wax off, and then lightly brushing that over the surface, and it will pick up the high areas of the stucco mixture that I have, and it will create more texture. The whole point that the whole thing I was trying to work on with this particular piece was trying to kind of frame those squares by building up the ridge first with that stucco mixture, but then also with the encaustic. I'm still mostly just using plain clear encaustic, white encaustic, and then I have I believe it's a cerulean gray that RNF makes, and I also have some of that on my palette as well. And at this point I kind of started adding that onto the piece a little bit, one of the areas obviously being around these squares. For those of you who've watched some of my videos in the past, I usually tend to go ahead and inscribe things onto my work using different little tools that I have. Again, one of the things I was trying to highlight on this was that framing of those squares. So I went ahead and drew some lines in there, and just trying some different tools that I have in my little toolkit, trying to create some different areas of interest and marks. And then I'm going to use my tar with a little bit of vegetable oil, and going to fill those spaces in. The dollar store is a great place to get some kind of different types of items that you can use to make marks with. Another thing that's always nice to keep handy is a little package of the baby wipes. That's what I use to kind of clean up that little bit of a tar ring there on my mat. I do use those often. You can use them to clear some of this off. I will use that to help keep my hands clean. But often when I'm clearing this off, I use paper towel, or I do have some oil absorbent shop rags that work really well also. I wanted that tar color to be just a little bit darker, so I went back before I started cleaning it off and added just a little bit of a heavier dose of it. And then again, just wiped off the excess the best as I could, and then I'll be giving it a light fuse. I was definitely pleased with how the stucco type mixture that I applied to this really made this piece solid. It's very light, which is great, so it's not like a piece of wood. It's not heavy really at all, but it feels very, very solid. It doesn't have much bend, where Lily, it had no bend to it whatsoever. So once I finished that, I decided on this one I'm going to go ahead and put Encaustic on the board that I prepared, and then so I'm going to work the board now, and then eventually I'll be putting these two pieces together. I felt a little more confident to use the blowtorch on this because it was a solid piece of wood covered with all of the other stuff, so didn't use the torch on the other one as much because I was afraid it might be a little too much for it, but I do like to pull that torch out and use it. I decided to add a layer of white to this to try to push some of that back a little bit, but then once I did that and gave it a light fuse, I decided that actually it pushed it back a little too much, so I did end up scraping a lot of the white back, which I'm not sure if I got on camera or not. Oh, yes, I did. I had some interruptions at this time, so I couldn't remember if I turned the camera back on. But yes, as you can see, I did end up pulling a lot of the white, left some of it, but I did pull a lot of it back off of there. I actually used some stained papers and fabric, as well as some book pages and hymnal pages on this piece of wood, and all of the stained items I did myself, so that was a fun experiment that I did, oh, I don't know, several months ago. So at this point I did decide to go ahead and add a little bit of that cerulean gray on here as well, so that it kind of ties in with the piece that I'll be mounting to it. I have this fun little pasta cutter, and it is great for making some parallel lines, and so I used that on there, and then just kind of preparing the board as I'm getting ready to go ahead and apply a layer of the tar mixture onto this as well. Again, it just helps give it the same tone as the piece that I'll be laying on top of it. So once I get this all cleaned off of here, I'm going to go ahead and give it another light fuse, and I will give you a sneak peek here of what the two pieces look like together. However, once I shut the camera off, I did go ahead and add some nails and some other metal bits to this piece, and if you want to see how it turned out, you can find those pictures on my Instagram page. Thank you for watching.